every time I get stuck like that, I'm like, I'm a fraud, and everybody's about to figure it out, and my career is over.
That happens to me every time I finish the script. Because I have this feeling of like, you have this moment where you're like, oh, it feels really good.
Yeah.
And you have a moment like, I'll bet this really sucks.
I bet this sucks.
I got something on my mind, but words, they won't do it justice. I could write it on a sign, but words, they won't do it justice. I need a translate.
Aloha, welcome to ICAN Talks. I'm Sibbett.
And I'm Matt Kester.
And I think we're just going to get into it today.
Yeah, start talking.
All right. Well, this is a great opportunity because, you know, as writers, especially writers with a Hawaii background, as we've gotten into it and as I've been able to get into areas and start, you know, creating shows or just writing movies or whatever, there's a lot of people in Hawaii that like will come up and just say, hey, I want to be a writer. I want to be a writer. You get a lot of that?
Tons, constantly.
Do you take time to like try to talk people through?
I do. And I mean, the first is like, are you sure? It's a lonely road.
Yeah.
But I do try to take time to talk to people. And, you know, I mean, I think that when you have somebody come up and say, hey, I want to do what you do.
Right.
You know, they're being vulnerable to you. I'm kind of like, okay, well, here was my path, because it's hard. You know, sometimes you don't really see what that path is, but, you know, if people see that, oh, you did it, you know, then they see kind of the possibility of it. So, yeah, I always, you know, take the time to try and say, oh, you know, this is how you do it. And for me, I didn't go to film school.
Right.
You know what I mean? I went to graduate school and I had written before, but I didn't go through that traditional. You know what I mean?
But you have a certain level of credibility when it comes to research and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, 'cause what's your background? Like,
I was a history professor for like 11 years before I ever got into writing. You know, in entertainment. I have a PhD in U.S. history, but the emphasis is on Hawaii and the American West. So I wrote about Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders in the West, in the Western United States, in the 19th and early 20th century. So I'd done a ton of research. So I was used to kind of that process of like the blank page. Right. You know what I mean? Looking at it and being like, oh, I have to do something here. But it's different writing for, you know what I mean? Writing scripts is just a whole different thing. I mean, I was used to researching. I was used to having this real fidelity to the truth, right? I had to source everything. I had to, make sure that everything was true. Like I had to, you really, and especially when you're like writing about something like that, like Hawaii, you're like, this has to be correct.
Right.
You know what I mean? This has to be right. I have to be able to back all this stuff up. So there was something a little bit freeing about like, I can not make stuff up, but you know, I can create a little bit more, and that creative process is informed by, you know, what I learned in other ways.
Well, I'm going to address one thing because we're feeling very podcasty right now.
Totally.
But the truth is we have a bit of a
history.
we have a bit of a history, and
Yeah.
I would love to just kind of say that, like, you know, because I was that guy. I was that guy that didn't know anybody, and when I wanted to be a writer and trying to figure out how do we do this, and something really cool happened in my world is because we knew each other way back.
Yep.
You know, like you said, you were a history professor, you were working at the archives in the university, and I was a student.
Yep.
Right? So I would just come to the archives and geek out. Me and you would just kind of chop it up, and I really, really liked that, and it was really cool. And I remember when I started getting into writing, and again, man, just the craziest news. I hear, hey, did you know Matt Kester is a writer, like a screenplay writer in Hollywood? And I'm like, what? I was like, you talking about my man, Matt Kester? This guy that walked me through stuff? And I was like, yeah, it was the first time I'd ever could say that I knew a writer. Like I knew somebody that was doing what I wanted to do. And I called you up and I wanted to know what the heck happened. Like, how did that even happen for you? Yeah. Because how did you get to that place from, you know, working in the archives, working in the university sector, and then, you know?
I mean, it happened
right?
for me, and I remember it was so great because when you're in the archives, you know, the only time students really come up and talk to you is when they have been assigned something, and you were, and I'm not joking, the only student that would come up and just be like, hey, I don't have an assignment. I just want to look at this stuff. I just want to check it out. So I know we kind of bonded over that early because we had similar interests in history and stuff like that, and, you know, your family. And I got into it, you know, I always liked watching movies. I was like always a movie. I never really too much TV, but I was always super into movies. And I had a friend named Kyle Haramoto, who's a great writer, great producer, who had, and I had known him since I was like a young kid. His grandparents and my grandparents and his parents were really good friends. He's a Japanese guy, you know, Hawaii guy. And he, you know, he had just got into screenwriting, and he was a staff writer on the first year of the Hawaii 5-0 reboot. And so he came to Hawaii and he called me and he goes, hey, I'm here, you know, let's hang out. And, you know, so I go to town and, you know, it's like that first year of a big CBS show, and like, you know, we go out to dinner and everything. And I was, you know, I went to set one day and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, you know, I don't know anything about this world at all. And he had read I just published my book, and he read it and he goes, oh, it's really well written. You should try to write a screenplay or something like that. Because he asked me, he goes, hey, you just published a book with Oxford. How much are you going to make on this? I was like, this book's going to cost me money. like there's no, like there was no money. Yeah. And he was like, you should you should just give it a shot. But I had never.
Wait, that's how it happened? You weren't like thinking I want to be a screenwriter?
Not really. Like he had read my book, and then I was intrigued. I thought what he did was so cool because he wrote something. And then all of a sudden, it's like the trucks pull up and all these people, you know what I mean? The cameras and like people are saying, and that's a really cool process to watch, where you go, wow, you wrote this thing in your pajamas, and now all these people are here, and there's a bunch of lights and actors, you know? So it's cool. But I didn't know the first thing. Like I didn't know Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Bro. Like I didn't know any of that. And he was like, hey, I remember literally sitting down at dinner with him and him going like, so here's what happens in Act 1. Like he starts off in like a movie. I was like, okay. And and then I just read, to be honest. He told me, he goes, I can get you kind of any script if you want. So I must have read 50 television pilots and maybe that many features, and I would just read them because that's all I knew how to do was like read and research. And then write. So that was like, okay, I can do that. So I would just read and read and read. And after a while, you're like, okay, I kind of see how this is going, and you see how people get in and out of scenes and do all that stuff. And so then I just started writing, and I wrote the first real like TV pilot I ever finished. I sent it to him, and he was like, this is pretty good. And he sent it to his manager, and his manager goes, I want to work with you. And I remember driving home from that meeting, and Kyle calls me. He goes, "Are you kidding me? You just got signed?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't sign anything." He's all, "That's just, you don't have to sign anything, man. He's going to represent you." So I was like, I didn't know anything.
Wow.
And so that was like, and so I had just gotten tenure, and I took a leave of absence for a year to go write on it was an ABC show called Forever.
Yeah.
And we moved to California. My whole family moved to California, which my kids were kind of like, I don't really like it, but that's kind of how it started. And eventually, I just kind of like kept one foot in academia and one foot in writing until I moved all the way over. But that's like how it happened for me.
Bro, our stories are so different.
Really,
so different. And that's the thing about writing. That's also the thing about getting into the industry is that people will always ask like, what happened? How did you do it?
Yeah.
And there is no way to do it. You know, you just kind of, I think it's just the people that don't give up, bro.
Yeah, what was yours? Like, what's your, like, how did it go down?
Well,
because I don't think I've ever heard, I only know pieces of it.
I'd never, ever thought of writing as a career. I didn't know you could make any money on it. But just like you, I mean, we all have a love for movies, right? So that's why we want to get into the business. But like, for me, I never realized that, like, when you watch a movie, I'm super analytical, right? So I'll watch a movie and I'll be like, bro, that movie sucks. Yeah. And we all do that. But if you can actually really think about why does it suck, where it sucked, you know, what led to it sucking, you know, then if you can not only identify that, and then if you can piece together what would make it better, that's a marketable skill, bro, and they pay you for that. You know what I mean? And I didn't understand that though at the time. Really, for me, it was super simple. I was working as a waterfront safety lifeguard, Japanese lifeguard at Keaulana Ranch.
I had that job.
On Secret Island. Yeah. You weren't there at the same time? You worked
I
over
had
there?
that job, bro, when I was like out of high school.
Oh,
Secret
wow.
Island, canoe out to the sandbar. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, every day, bro. Every day. And I loved that job. To be honest, it was the
Super
best
cool.
job ever. I probably would have stayed there if in the long run it made more money because I loved it. But I was there, and I remember reading in the Honolulu Star Advertiser newspaper when people used to read those. And I read an article about Dwayne Johnson's Kamehameha movie. And I just remember thinking, oh, well, if Hollywood wants Hawaiian stories, I bet I could do that. You know, it was just that, you know, that spark. And so I'd like develop this story in my head, and like I would tell people, and they'd be like, that sounds like a really cool story. And I was like, yeah. And then like 2 years later, like literally just talking story, I thought I could keep talking about this story. It's a fun little thing that, you know, get-togethers or whatever, or I can actually write it. You know, had no idea the structure. I didn't have a mentor, which sounds amazing. I didn't want to spend any money, right? So I was like, I think I'm gonna write this. The only thing I ever really spent money on was a book that was written in like 1985 on like how to write screenplays that sell. Never even read the whole book. Didn't even read a screenplay. I wrote 3 scripts before I ever read one.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
I wrote those 3 scripts. I never bought the final draft software or anything like that.
And so you were writing just basically like, this scene comes next. I know what should happen next in this story.
I read enough of
Those
the
are
book.
best scripts sometimes.
I read enough of the book, and there's some pictures in there to see what the format looked like. And so I memorized the format because I was writing on Microsoft Word. So I'd be
Awesome.
like tab, 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 space, 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 and then then tab, 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 and then boom, boom, boom. Like I knew where the character
slug line and all that kind of stuff
I wrote
goes.
3 scripts in Times Roman because I didn't even know it was supposed to be in that Courier Nude font. And I just knew what I saw in the book. You know, it had to, everything that you see on screen has to be on page. And so I did that, and I committed. It was so much fun, and it was freeing to like get ideas out there that after I wrote one, I was like, well, shoot, I wrote one. I bet I could write another one, you know? And I wrote my second script in 4 months, you know, my script after that, the next one in like a month and a half.
Yeah.
Like, it just was something I really enjoyed doing. And I wrote probably 10 scripts before I even had any clue on how to get somebody to even read one.
To read it.
Yeah. So, but that's what it takes though. So like when people ask, like when people tell me they want to be a writer, I love it. I love that conversation, but it's like, dude, do you really know what you're saying? Like, because if you want to be a writer, you have to write. Like you have to write when nobody's talking to you. You have to write when your wife is mad at you. You got to write when your kids are, you know, like you need to write. Like
Ass and chair.
ass and chair, bro. Like, ass for seat. That's what I always say.
literally what it
you know?
is.
And I always tell people this because I try to dedicate a couple hours a month to like talking to people that just want to like, you know, get in there. And I always tell them right off the bat. So I'm telling you this now. Because I don't know you, because a lot of times I don't know them. I said it does me no good to lie to you. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's fun. You can find inspiration. It's great. It really motivates you. But you have to follow through. I mean, you have to. Like, we all have excuses, and I truly believe excuses are valid. It is hard. You have a full-time job. I get it. You weren't able to write this week. You know, you got a family, you got kids. I get it. You had no time to write this week. But if you want to be a writer, it don't matter, bro.
It don't matter. And I learned it like because when I was teaching, I was taking my dissertation, I was writing my dissertation and then turning the dissertation into a book. And I had young kids, and it was like, I'd put them to bed, go back to the office and write from 9 to midnight. Those are my 3 hours of writing a day. And you know how it is, man. When you're running a show, it's like catch as catch can. Like I got an hour here, I got an hour here. And you can't, it's funny sometimes because people are like, I love writing. I sit down, I have my glass of lemonade, I open the doors, I see the wind through the trees. I was like,
sounds beautiful.
That sounds rad, but
That sounds amazing.
I was like, but sometimes it's like a plane on a, you got to learn to do it. And the idea that it's like, I have to wait for the muse to hit me to make something really good. I just assume that I'm going to sit down and start typing and it's probably going to be bad.
Right.
And then I'll rewrite it later.
Right.
But you have to just put the words on the page first so you have something to go back to. I'd rather, I had the first showrunner I ever had when I was I knew nothing. And he goes, Matt, I'd always rather be looking at it than looking for it. You know what I mean? Just write it first.
Yeah.
And then go back. And then writing is rewriting. That's the other thing too, is people think that they're like, I wrote the script, and you're like, yeah, talk to me on draft 7.
Right.
You know, when you really like gone through it and like, smoothed it out a little bit. So it's just work. It's like just ass and try.
I think I've noticed now that we've gotten into the industry, the one thing that I noticed is that the people that are here, and I'm including myself in this, are not necessarily the most talented. I think there's writers out there that are probably way better than me, way better.
Oh, for sure.
But there's a level of discipline, a level of professionalism that if you don't have it, you're not going to make it. You're just not. Like, because you have to struggle for a long time. I mean, I don't know. Well, it sounds like your process was a lot easier than mine. Like, it took me forever, bro. It just took me forever to even find a place, to find a way in. And all I could do, you have to have a sense of urgency. I've also found, like, if you can't do that on your own, then you'll never finish that darn script.
You have to give yourself deadlines.
Yeah.
Like I have to give myself that. Like even right now, I'm developing. I don't have a hard deadline for the outline that I have to write, so I give myself one. Right. And I do it every day, just because you have to. You just have to sit down and write. I also find that you got to read. I just think it's, being a reader and understanding how language works, and that's also important. Like I still, every year, the Writers Guild, right, when you become a member of the Writers Guild, when it's awards time, they send you all these scripts, right? They send you movie screeners, but they also send you bound scripts. I read them all. Yeah. I read them all, because even if it's something that I'm not like I'm not really interested in it, but like I read it all to see how people are writing their action lines. I read it all to see how people are writing their slug lines. I read it to see how people get in and out of scenes. I learned something every one of those scripts. I feel like it makes me a better writer, because I was like, oh, I wouldn't have approached that action scene that way, but that's cool. Yeah. Maybe I'll try that. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just a constant process, I think, of like reading and writing, and the best part, the easiest part, is those solitary moments where you're just like, oh, this is great. I'm just in my room and I'm writing. But I mean, when you're up against like a real deadline, like the cameras turn on in 3 days, that's when you are like, okay, like this, like you say, it's just that discipline and that work ethic, and that like, okay, I mean, in Rescue High Surf, I had a script deadline 3 days after my best friend was killed. Oh yeah. And it was like, I have 250 people that are like waiting for this script to be finished. Yeah. And you can't, you know what I mean? You just have to do it. So, and that, I think that work ethic happens first when you're just doing it yourself. I was just going to say that. Yeah. Like it doesn't come that day. Right.
I had so I have a little bit of a reputation to move quickly.
Yeah, I know, you're fast.
But I didn't know that was a reputation. I just thought that's what you were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So I always wrote with a sense of urgency, and so that when the time comes when you're needed, it can be done. Like you can turn it on. Yeah. Like I think the craziest one that happened for me, and it was actually on my first produced project, was I was said, okay, so we're gonna do a Hail Mary. This was the movie Braven, and I'd already hooked up with Jason, and Jason was like, dude, I have about a 2-month window, right? But that 2-month window was coming up in about 2 months. And he was like, if we can get this movie written, and if we can get it sold.
In 2 months?
Yeah. And we can shoot it in this pocket.
So wait, you wrote Braven and shot Braven in a 4-month period?
Well, technically, yes. So this is what happened. So, and this was me, cutting my teeth, trying to prove something, right? So, because I had written a script that was comparable, like a writing sample. It was just one of the, the 10 scripts I had. And a producer saw it and was like, hey, do you think, Pa could write that? He was talking to Jason. Jason was like, dude, he could write anything. And so he challenged me, to write that. And the first draft of Braven was written in 4 days. And Jason, I remember he called me. He's like, dude, where you at with that script? And I was like, oh, I actually just finished it. He's like, you did? He's like, awesome. He goes, I'm gonna call you back. What he told me later is he called the producer, because the producer had called him and said, hey, how long do you think it'll take to get the script? And Jason's like, oh, dude, you're gonna get it right away. The dude was like, no, I mean, there's no way. Like, we just gave him the outline. You know what I mean? And Jason's like, that's what he called me. And so as soon as I told him, I was like, dude, I got it. He was like, just send it to me. Send it to me. Send it to him. And he said, just send it right now. I was like, dude, I haven't even read it. He said, don't matter. He's like, it's good. Dude, I didn't even read it.
That's so great.
So yeah,
I love that.
But it was just a way to say we came to play.
Yeah, yeah.
We're here to do this. What was nuts after that too is my son was born, so I'm in the hospital, and I'm holding him, and I get a call from Jason. Jason's like, dude, we sold it. He's like, we sold it. I was like, awesome, you know. And I'm still working full time. So when we talk about excuses, again, yes, I get it, and I will never actually judge someone for their excuse, because it is valid. Like I always tell people, your excuses are valid, but at the same time, you got to dig a little deeper. Yeah. So when we sold it, I got a call the next day that said, dude, we got to change the whole first act. You know what that means, right?
You got to change it all.
Yeah, yeah. Originally, Braven was written as a few brothers and a friend at a cabin. And that was this concept, you know, they find drugs in the cabin and they got to fight off drug dealers. But Jason had a really great idea, and it was like, it should be a father-son story. And I'm like, it really should be a father-son story, but I don't want to do that. You know, in my head, I'm just like, dude, I don't want to do that. But
you're pulling the thread on the sweater, brother.
Look, man, if you remove 3 friends, you know, like 2 brothers and 3 friends. They have lines. Yeah, they have personalities, and you want to add a dad, it changes everything, bro.
Totally different movie.
Totally different movie. And he was like, dude, we got a week. You know, and he's like, what do you need? Like, do you need a nurse? Do you want me to hire a nurse to take care of your wife? And all that? No. I told him, I was like, dude, I don't need any of that. The only thing I need is that if I call you or I call the producer, I don't care what you do when you answer that phone. I said, if you can do that for me, I'll get this done. And mind you, in my house, this is my 5th child, right? And we've developed a system in my house where, you know, my wife in the first, you know, part when the babies are born, I take care of all the diaper changes, all of them. My wife didn't change a diaper on my son for the first month of his life. I changed every single diaper.
You're a good man.
And but so like you said, it was finding your moments, right? I was waking up at 3:30 in the morning, in between feedings, writing. I turned in that second draft in 3 days. 3 days. Right?
I'm not that fast.
It was
That's
a full.
incredible.
No, but it's not even a matter of saying like, hey, look at me, look at me.
Yeah, it's just you got a deadline.
It's understanding that you have to move. You know what I mean? You have to move, and you have to develop the discipline and the skill set to do that. There's no way I could have pulled that off if I didn't write 10 scripts with urgency. If I didn't write in a way that I truly believed I was going to be successful.
I mean, we got it. It's so true, because you know, on Rescue High Surf, originally they ordered 12 episodes. And we got to episode 9, and we got the great phone call, which is also the most terrifying day of my life to that point, where they were just like, we're going to do 19. But that means that episode 9 has to be a cliffhanger, and episode 10 has to reintroduce us to the world, and episode 12, which was already written, has to be something totally different, and then episode 13 we want to put after the Super Bowl. So that has to be something really special, and we're going to give you some extra money. And I was like, okay, so that's 4 scripts right now, today, Wednesday afternoon, that they're like, you got to change immediately. Yeah. And you're like, okay, Moody, okay. And it's just like, you just like have to switch into that mode. And again, like you say, it's like the discipline came first.
Discipline comes
and
first,
then it was after that. And then, you know, freaking hard, man, to tap that creative juice in those moments where, like you say, it's like, I just changed the diaper, it's 3 a.m., but I should probably look at that scene.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just kind of like switch in that mode it's just hard. But if you can kind of like, you know, embrace the suck and just do it, it's I
actually prefer to work under a deadline now.
Yeah, I do too.
I really do, because like it's I heard another writer say this, so I'm not going to claim this as mine, but when you have a deadline and a gun to your head, there is no writer's block.
So true.
You know, you just crank it out. Like, it just comes. And sometimes it's so, because it's so raw and everybody needs it, and it's just like, when it comes out, the adjustments or whatever
Yep.
are super minimal, and you just shoot that thing, and it's a great feeling, man. Like, it really is. But for those that are really trying to get into this, I think the only thing I can stress, like, we could sit here and talk as professional writers, but it all comes in this preparation. You know what I mean? It really does, because there's no way I could do what I'm doing if I didn't do what I did.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that was hours. Like, that whole concept of 10,000 hours to master anything, did I put in? I put in those hours, bro. Like, I put them in.
And so for writers, it's like set deadlines for yourself.
Right.
I feel the other thing too is it's the cliche, right? Is like, write what you know. But it's kind of a cliche for a reason. You know what I mean? For the first things, it's like there's always, and sometimes when you get into this too, when you have agents and managers, they're like, everybody wants a big 4-quadrant movie right now. That's what they're buying.
Yeah, dude, everybody wants that.
Yeah, I know.
What does
You know
that
what I
mean?
mean? And you're
What
kind of
does
like,
that
oh,
mean, dude?
bro,
Yeah, okay.
You told me that. But like, there's like, at the same time, it's like, that's awesome. I write that and try to sell it. But sometimes the best things I've ever written, because the other thing is like, nobody really knows what's going to be the next big thing and what's going to sell. Nobody really knows. They know what people want. They know what the market wants. But sometimes the next thing that like people are looking for, they just haven't read it and haven't seen it yet.
100%.
And you need to write something that's just like, I'm writing something that I love and I don't see. I've never seen it. If you got an idea like that, to me, I'm like, that's what you write.
That's
if you don't see it on TV or a movie and you want to, and you really feel it, like, this is something I've never seen and I want it, like, you should write that.
Right. Well,
write that.
Look, to that point, because you said you read a lot of scripts and all that. When you first got started, were you copying somebody else's style or somebody else's voice, or like, because I mean, that's really my question.
I think so, because I didn't know how else. So I was a little bit. I would, because I had read so many scripts. I knew the ones immediately where I was like, ooh, and the ones where I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get a drink of water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the ones where I was like, I was in, where I was turning the pages. And going like, what's happening next? Where I wasn't getting confused in the first 10 pages of like, wait, who's this character and how did they relate? So I started really looking at those scripts because they were holding my attention.
Right.
So what is it about the writing? What is it about the pacing, the language, the dialogue that's doing that? So in that sense, that's what I was trying to copy, because I was like, well, if it's holding my attention,
right?
You know what I mean? Hopefully it'll hold an executive's attention or somebody who can get this made. But like, so a little bit that, but that's mostly it. I just tried to kind of like write in a way that, I think that when your scripts end up flat, when you read them and you're like, it's not popping, it's because you weren't having much fun writing it.
Yeah.
That's for me.
Right.
Like when I can really just sit there and go like, I'm enjoying this scene. I'm enjoying the conversation between these two individuals. I'm enjoying seeing what this character's doing. That's when I find it kind of like people are like, I respond to this. It just leaps off the page a little bit for me versus like, well, I got lost. So I try to like, when I sit down and I'm writing, I'm like, make it fun, like make it interesting, make it a fun journey for the reader, an interesting journey, a harrowing, whatever it is, like elicit emotion from the reader in whatever it is that you're writing, and that that's how you're crafting the language. But just having to elicit some kind of emotion. They can, hate is an emotion. If they hate the character, and you want them to hate the character, you did your job.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I tried to look and see, like, in copying somebody's style, it would be like that. I remember reading like a ton of scripts, and at the time I had the script for Breaking Bad, the pilot.
Yeah, you can't read that pilot, bro.
I know.
Can't read it because it's so good.
I read Vince Gilligan's script, and it's just one of those things where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just so good. And so I read it, but I was like, there's something here, you know what I mean? Like, and he broke some rules in it, man. It was kind of a slow burn. It was like a lot of stuff that you're not supposed to do in a pilot. And that's also when I was just like, oh, wait, I thought you were supposed to do X, Y, and Z, but like he didn't, and this is awesome.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Well, look, it's really fascinating talking with you because, again, our processes are so different. That's what makes this creative writing medium, that's why there is no one way.
No.
There's no one way that works. And I still haven't met a writer that doesn't like to read.
Yeah.
Except me. I can't stand it.
You don't like reading?
I hate it. I read my first novel after I graduated from high school, and that was the last novel I read for probably 2 decades. You know what I mean? Like, I don't read.
But you watch movies?
I watch movies. I consume it. You know what I mean? I love, like, storytelling is just a thing. Like, I'm an actual storyteller. You know what I mean? I come from a long line of storytelling.
That's what I mean. That gets to a different point. Is like, there are many ways to tell stories, and the medium of storytelling has not always been written. We know that. You know what I mean? It's like there's all kinds of storytelling mediums that are not written, that are sometimes better.
Right. Well, so this is why I want to have this discussion, because, like, you can figure it out based on your way. Because I tried for years to be the writer that everybody else is. Yeah. Right? Because I've tried to read. I just can't finish. Like, I've probably started 100 scripts. I've only finished, like, I'm talking about the whole span of my career. Like,
it's amazing.
I've only really read maybe 5. Yeah. You know, I don't even like reading my own stuff.
Oh, that's the worst.
Like, I don't. Like, my process is, I don't know if I should share it, because people would be like, dude, you are crazy. Like, you're crazy. So, like, my process is.
Well, we know 2 things about you. We know you're fast, and we know you're a gifted writer. So let's hear about the process.
No. But it's not about a talent thing or anything like that, because I really do attribute where I am to 2 things: discipline. Like, I just have this feeling that, like, I don't want to be outworked. You know what I mean? Like, I at least need that. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm a minority writer, you know, and in this case I'm a minority of a minority. I don't know how many Hawaiian script writers there are out there. That, like, the only way to stand out is to be different and to be good. You know what I mean? So I've dedicated myself to be good. It's not like I was born good at this. You know, like, I worked really hard. And the other thing is I just never, ever believed that I wasn't gonna make it, you know. And I think that this is just a lesson, I think, for people to understand. Like, I believe, you know, that we have Creator, right? And, you know, I believe that we are created in that image, and if we are, then there is the Creator. So I'm a creator.
It's in you.
You know what I mean? It's in me, right?
It's beautiful.
So the creation is already made. So if I believed that I was going to be a writer, and I'm talking, like, even when you are faced with everything in the world that tells you that you are not, you know what I mean? That you are not that. I have no business being here. Just to get into the Writers Guild, you know this, is extremely difficult. But once you're in, it's like, what, at any given point, 93% are unemployed.
Inactive, unemployed. Yeah.
And out of that 7% that are employed, how many of them are actually from a minority group? Minority group including not just the fact, you know, like, I have native Hawaiian. That includes African Americans, it includes women, you know what I mean? And every other subgroup out there. I have no business being in this industry, but I just never, ever believed that I couldn't do it, you know? And I think those are the only 2 things that I needed to make it work, right?
And but, like, discipline and belief.
Right. It's all I have.
It's all you need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's so, because that belief is what keeps you going and driving you forward. And then, but you can believe all day and not put your ass in the chair. Right. Right. But if you're like, I believe in this and I'm going to sit down and work to get it done, like, it'll happen. And
well, and I set parameters. Like, you shouldn't be crazy about this drive and belief, right? Like, I refuse to spend money on this, because in the beginning, obviously, it's a pursuit, it's a dream. I don't want to bankrupt my family because I have.
But we don't live in LA either. Neither of us live in LA.
Yeah, neither of us live in LA. No contacts there, like, nothing. Yeah, that's why I was shocked when I found out you were there.
Yeah, well, I had to be. I was, like, on a show. I, like, staffed on a show, and they're like, you got to come to LA. But I lived in a van the whole time. I was like, I never wanted to be in LA. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, if I'm in a van and not in an apartment, it's like, it's a camping trip. Yeah. It's not, I don't actually live here. I live in Honolulu. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, but yeah, man, that's why I think this is great. I think it's good for people to see that, you know, there's people that are going to relate to your story 100% because of that, you know, that you have that certain type of focus and a certain way of doing things and the way you consume content, you know. And then for me, it's just totally different, man. It's all free form and free flow and just using your instincts and, you know, like, all of that.
And that just goes to show that there's no, you know what I mean? All that really matters is that you sit down and write.
Right.
You know,
That's
however
actually
it gets
all
you
that
to do, that's all that really matters, is that you sit down and write, because you could talk to 100 writers. They're going to give you 100 different processes.
Right.
They do it in the morning, they do it at night, they write an outline, they don't write an outline, they write a
Right.
beat sheet, they just let it go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everybody's got their own thing.
Right.
So there's no like formula
Right.
besides, like you said, discipline.
I always tell people, like, if I'm talking to somebody and the first question is like, what have you written? You know, like, I want to be a writer. What have you written? Oh, you know, I have this idea. I'm working on this thing. I'm like, have you finished it? No. You know, and the people that have, awesome. I'd love to hear that. Okay,
Yeah.
so now we can have a completely different
Yeah.
conversation. How many things have you written? You know, you know, I just have this, but you know, I'm working on this next one. I'm like, okay, good. You know, and then, but it's a different conversation when you talk to someone. It's like, I've written 3 shorts. I've written, you know, 2 features, and I'm like, well, okay.
Oh, right on. Yeah, so you're doing it.
No, let's have a
Yeah.
real conversation about that. So just keeping that in mind, like, you know, again, you want to be a writer. There's a difference between you want to be a writer and you are a writer. Like, you don't have to be getting paid to be a writer. You know what I mean? I was fully convinced in my head, with no money in my pocket, writing at a McDonald's, writing at a library. My office was the public library for many, many years. You know,
Same.
And
Coffee shops and libraries.
Yep.
Still,
I-
I got so used to it that like I kind of like writing in those places. Like
Me too.
I write in coffee shops.
I like
and
the
libraries a
noise,
lot,
but I don't
so-
like it directed at me. I
Yep.
like the shuffle. I like life happening, but not, you know, I can't, if it's directed at me, then I can't write. But like, yeah, I did, look, bro, I was, you know, I was cheap, bro. I wasn't making a lot of money. So like, I wouldn't go to a coffee shop. I would go to McDonald's, order a $1 coffee, and I don't drink coffee, but just so I could rent the table.
Yeah.
I looked at it like I was
Renting
renting the
the table,
table.
yep.
You know, and I would write for 4 hours, and then I'd feel bad, and then I'd order another one, you know, so I could rent the table for another 2. You know what I mean? And I would just work, bro. I would just work. And it felt like, because you have to create that discipline of like going to the office. Like,
Yep.
I needed to keep banker's hours, bro. Or like,
Same.
and if not banker's hours, like in the very beginning, it was like, you got to get the time in. You got to get it in. You got to get somehow. You know, kids sleeping. I'd wake up early. My trick was waking up super early. I would
Yeah.
just wake up early, and I would write until the world woke up. You know what I mean?
That's where I get most of, like, when I'm really early morning. I would 5 to 8, 9 a.m. was always a super productive time for me. Still is.
Right. Yeah, I'm full-time job trying to figure that out, you know.
Yeah.
And even now, even to this day, if I can, you know, because now I get to work from home. That's a luxury that I'm blessed to have. You know, I still try to wake up really early. If I can work a couple hours, take the kids to school, by the time I get 10 o'clock, I've written 5 hours already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then occasionally I'll have a little burst in the afternoon sometimes.
Oh.
Especially if I've had time to think. Like, I wrote in the morning, and then I'll just like go around and like clean yard, or like take my kids
yeah.
somewhere, or go surf, and then I'm like, oh, and then I'll come back and I'll get a little 2 hour where I'm like, great.
Yeah.
That's where I solved my yesterday's act 2.
Right.
We were laughing before we started this
Oh,
thing. I was
bro.
like, my wife comes home yesterday, and I was just like kicking rocks, all frustrated, and she's like, oh, stuck in act 2. And I was
amazing.
like, yeah, I'm
That's such
stuck
an awesome
in
story.
act 2.
That's a writer's life, bro.
And I was just like, grinding my teeth, and then like, you know, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I got it.
Yeah,
and then you
yeah.
just sit down and do it.
And
before
now
you
you're
forget.
making dinner.
Yeah.
Now you're doing the laundry, and your wife's like, he cracked
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Totally. And you're like, those moments where you allow yourself to walk away from the laptop and just think about it. But I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing, is like, and you were saying too, like, what are you thinking about? You're there, you're playing, you're throwing a ball with your kid, or you're doing something,
Yeah,
you're doing
yeah.
laundry, but your head is in act 2, where you're
Yeah.
like, I don't get it. Where should he go next? No, that's a double beat. That sucks. He needs to go somewhere else, or they need to do something else. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's immersive. And I think that's why, I don't know if you notice this, but like when I'm really immersed in a script and telling a story, like the hours just kind of fly.
bro,
like they
it's
just
like-
are gone all of a
It
sudden.
starts to feel like you don't have enough time in the day
Yeah.
because it's creativity, like you're just moving. You know, I do want to make sure we talk about something real quick, because, you know, we're here today because, you know, ICAN has sort of built this platform, and, you know, you and I have both worked with them, and I really got involved because it was an opportunity to work with, you know, like Native Hawaiians, people from Hawaii, and trying to find a place for them, and, you know, because it wasn't there for me, you know what I mean, like, and I was never a part of a writers club or you know, any sort of filmmaking and all that, and it's a lonely road. My writing is really lonely, and I was just really grateful to see that there's you know, work to be done, man, and you know this now because you've been pretty involved in the community and stuff. There's a lot of really good,
So many
in the
talented,
world of writing.
writers, actors. I mean, ICAN to me has just been incredible, and it's just been something that I feel so privileged and honored to be a part of it because, I'm a Haole guy telling Hawaii stories.
Right.
I don't ever say I'm telling Hawaiian stories. I
Right.
say I'm telling Hawaii stories, right? And I write mostly in present day Hawaii because that's a community I can relate to, and that's just something I feel like, okay, I can talk about this. Like I know these communities, and and I feel like I can represent them respectfully on screen and stuff like that. But what the world really needs is Hawaiians telling Hawaii stories. There's so many good storytellers, and there's so many incredible stories, and the world is really hungry for them. I really believe that. The world is hungry for these stories because I do believe Hawaii is truly a special place, truly a special place, and is a place that for a variety of reasons just has so much to give the world, and so much that it has given the world.
Hawaii has we're so multicultural that we have we are actually infused with all these different cultures and ideas and stuff. Like we understand that. Like you can sit back and say you're Hawaiian, but you kind of really understand, the Japanese experience, the Korean experience, the Portuguese, because we all kind of grow up together and we're in a pot together. That the Hawaiian experience generally is a world experience. I mean, you can look at any point in Hawaiian history and you can make a comparison to what society's dealing with. Hawaii's already dealt with it, and we can look at what we did right, what we did wrong. We can learn from all that, and I just I love it, man. I just want to also make sure that I mentioned something because ICAN sets up these programs, and there's so many people out there and so much talent out there that they don't all get funneled in, and I want to just encourage people that you just got to keep going, whether it's ICAN or not. I mean, because look, you didn't have ICAN, I didn't have ICAN, and we figured it out. But now that there is a place like this that actually helps nurture and brings things together, yes, it's great to be a part of that. But again, man, excuses like that, there is none. So like, if I work with, oh my gosh, I work with writers now that got into programs that I never got into. I work with writers that were able to be a part of fellowships that I never got into. I didn't do a single fellowship, a single works. I never got invited to anything. And I was writing. Like I just kept feeling like, oh, I got something great. I would turn it in to somebody and never get a call back. I never got selected. So please join us. Please be a part of it. Come out and share that. But just know that this is really your journey. You know what I mean? Like this is your journey, and
you can. I use ICAN to meet other writers and other creative professionals. Use ICAN to meet other people who will keep you accountable if that's what you need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To keep you on track, but also just to see that hey, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've got something in you that wants to perform, that wants to tell stories, that wants to do all that. Those stories matter. The story that you want to tell that you don't see yet is important. It's an important story. Those Hawaii stories are important. And just grateful. And grateful that after all these years, I get to sit down with you.
We've never actually had
cool.
a talk like
never,
this. But
never.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And look, man, I just have to say it. You were the first real person that I knew that was doing what I wanted to do. And I was really, really grateful for that. And, I will say this, even though we had this connection, it wasn't you bringing me in and giving me a career. I only want to point that out because a lot of people think that that's the only way to get in, that somebody's going to godfather you in. You know what I mean? I love that you were there. You became something that I could look at and say, I can do that too. But it was never your job to get me in. It's not our job to get somebody else in. We will help, we will guide, you know what I mean? And
it's impossible anyway. Your script gets you in. Your script gets you in. There's no even the guy Kyle who's like, hey, I'll have my script to your manager, but he was like, he read scripts of mine. He's all, nah. And then he was like, you're really going to quit your professor job to do this? Because guess what? It could be over in 2 years.
Yeah.
It's you. You do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I will say, you obviously did enough. You made enough of an impact for him to at least show it to somebody.
Yeah,
but that's
you didn't
hard
have
to
that.
do, man.
That's
but what I'm saying is it's hard to do.
It is
it's
hard
to, because Hollywood is a culture of no. Because as soon as somebody says yes, their ass is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard. So it's that's good. But again, if your stuff wasn't top notch, there's no way. So I just want people to understand it's not. Yeah, everyone's like, well, it's just who you know. It's like, yeah, you should know somebody, you know, be a part of a community. If you don't have a community, make one.
Yep.
You know, like it's good to have support because it's hard. It sucks. You just need friends, bro.
Yeah.
You just need friends. And the fact that you were my friend doing that thing,
Yep.
that was inspiring and that was enough. So thank you, man. Thank you for that.
And thank you, man. Thank you just for like, you know, and I knew, you know, just being there, like being who you are and being a curious person and just being somebody who really cares about this community and cares about, you know, it's always been there for you. And that this is the outlet that you have to bring it to the world. Like, I think people are going to be totally blown away by what they're about to see. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just never been done before.
Aloha, brother.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Aloha, brother. Wow. Okay, we're not supposed to hit the mic. Sorry, guys.
All right.
Okay. Shoot. Thank you, guys.